Welcome to the show. We have Scott Miller, who's a lifelong entrepreneur. He founded successful companies across manufacturing, technology, and even built a world-renowned bespoke motorcycle brand. Though he reached the peak of outward success, he carried the hidden weight of stress and pain until a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer changed everything. Rather than fighting the disease, Scott chose a path of deep healing and personal responsibility. His journey became one of self-love, transformation, and moving from head to heart. Having faced cancer twice, he now shares the insights that led him to inner peace and a life beyond imagination. Scott's mission is to inspire a global shift, guiding others from the mind into the heart. Welcome to the Danette May Show, where you'll receive profound breakthroughs, courage to break old patterns, and live into your soul's purpose. Each week, I will bring you epic guests and live coaching to remind you of your power. You have the ability to achieve extraordinary things, and the time to start is now. I'm excited to have Scott Miller on. I just recently was introduced to Scott and learned that he had not faced cancer once, but twice. I have been fascinated at his willingness to get raw and real with me on the journey of facing cancer, not with loved ones around him, but by himself. He's not someone who only has just an entrepreneurial background. He's a father, but he has deep insights to why wounding happens and the lessons he's learned through facing cancer and death. So I'm excited to welcome Scott to the show. So Scott, I'm glad to have you here. We were just saying we want to share our intentions, and I love that you said that you start meetings with intentions. What is your intention for being here?
You know, it's always organic. What do I feel right now? I feel like my intention is that we take the opportunity to share pretty deeply and vulnerably, so maybe it touches people in whatever way they're meant to be touched. But I think more than anything, what's coming up for me is taking the challenging, inspiring action in our own lives.
Wow, thank you. And my intention, well, I have an overall intention for the show, but my intention to ask you, because I can ask a lot of people, and I'm very specific who I ask to come on the show, because it's my time too, and I want to interview and ask questions to people that I'm really genuinely curious. And you've lived into 2 cancer journeys, and you faced off in moments where you wondered if that might be the last moment here on this earth plane. And not a lot of us have experienced that. We've wondered about it. We think about it. We wonder about our loved ones with it. And I feel that you didn't just have one journey, you've had 2. And the thing about you right now is you're not like 10 years from it. It's still fresh. It's
The second
still,
one, yeah.
The second one's fresh. How long ago has it been since?
Surgery was a year ago in January.
So a year ago in January. That's very recent. It's still in the memory deeply. And that's why I wanted to ask you if you would be willing to be vulnerable. So I love that your intention was to be vulnerable. I think I know I've learned a lot from you in the amounts of times we've talked of what you've experienced and how you see life. And I just appreciate when someone like you says, yeah, I'll share. This is what I've gone through. And I want to ask you, and I don't expect you to be anybody, actually. I don't think any of us, and I worry about people that think they've reached all the answers or they feel that they've become enlightened, because I think the thing is we're always learning and we're always evolving. And let me ask you, what was your life like in your 30s? What were your thoughts? What were your mannerisms? What were your behaviorisms? What were you living into? If someone were to meet Scott, how would they describe him?
Incredibly driven, living from my head, completely will-driven. So there wasn't anything that I wouldn't try to run through.
Yep.
And so I think in my 30s, it was that being someone I thought I was supposed to be, and not really maybe even having access. Although I had been doing personal work back then as well, but I was in my 30s.
Yeah. Did you have kids?
I had 3 kids at that point.
Yeah. So you're a young father.
Very young father. So in my 30s, I had almost a teenager, my mid-30s, had kids very young. So raising a family, running a business, just literally on the treadmill.
Yep, on the treadmill. And what would you say life was like as the 5-year-old Scott? What was going on with 5-year-old Scott?
That's actually a great question, just because I had an EMDR session last week and we had to go to the 5-year-old. I'm very close to the 5-year-old, but I would say the 5-year-old in my mid-30s was pretty unseen.
In your third, you weren't reflecting on the 5-year-old Scott.
No,
then.
I was trying to survive and become that person and I think particularly to culturally as a male, that pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We don't show vulnerability. You just will yourself through it. Yeah.
Yeah. But what was 5-year-old Scott doing?
A 5-year-old Scott was pretty much unseen. I know him now really well, but he was in a lot of, unbeknownst to me, he was in a lot of pain, had suffered a lot in childhood and things like that. Yeah, I'd say he was carrying a load that a 5-year-old has no understanding of how to carry. Like I'm 5.
Yeah. Do you feel a call to share anything that he was carrying, or what was he experiencing or witnessing?
Now, I think one of the things that I share in my bio that I didn't fully understand is that I had moved 17 times by the time I was 17. So all the moves, I was the new kid all the time. So walking into those things as a young adolescent.
Yep.
But it was really, for me, from a 5-year-old on, it was nothing but moves and nothing but things being pulled. So it was almost like, for anyone that's had these experiences, there's loss in all of those. So you're suffering little losses, and you can't really, as a young kid, understand what you're actually going through.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to be able to adjust and make new friends and do all those things. But as a child, for me, not having something grounded or having the familiarity with certain people and certain things, I think that was a pain that I carried that just continued to grow over life.
Yeah. And I'm reflecting on just human behavior, like when we're a child and it doesn't feel safe, or there's things that are constantly moving, or you're experiencing things that I honestly just think goes down to a lot of safety. I think it creates really driven humans sometimes. You're like, I'm going to control everything at this point, and I'm going to make sure it's different because now I can protect myself. And then it turns into this overarching desire that serves us, because then we build wonderful businesses and we make money and we look like we're killing life, but it's coming from a different place at times. Do you sense that you were doing that in your 30s a little bit, like just driving from potentially a wound?
No question I was. And also, too, I think there was some self-value issues.
Yeah.
So that I needed to prove who I was. I needed to prove who I was, not only to everyone else, but I needed to prove who I was to myself. And yet, over time, you learn that life isn't about accomplishment.
But you don't, when you're 30, you're just like you're saying, and I love this vulnerability because I often wonder if I'm still there, like wanting to prove to myself and to someone else of my value. Yeah. Do you feel that you face that anymore now that you've gone through what you've gone through?
No, I honestly don't.
Okay, tell me why. I'm so fascinated.
And I don't know that part of it is, it was like when I was running businesses. It really, it was about the greater good for me. And I wasn't there to win a popularity contest. I wanted to be respected, and I wanted them to know I was fair. But yet I was so driven that it wasn't about what other people thought, because I was going to get hundreds of different opinions if I brought up an issue, when you have hundreds of different employees, of what their opinion might be of what we should do or I should do. So I think part of it was during that maturation that I learned that I couldn't worry about it too much, because I had bigger things and that was that was all the people involved. That was all of their families. And so I really couldn't worry a whole lot about what people thought. Although, obviously, I care about human beings, and I want to take the best care of the people I love. And so I would say, even today, after what I faced, when you face death, and I'll just say it that way because I didn't know first time or the second time, you realize that none of that really mattered. It never has. But I think there are things in our culture that motivate us. I think for the good that social media does, I really feel bad for kids today. I wouldn't have wanted growing up in the social media, because I think what happens is, and this touches on this topic, that everybody's showing their best things on social media.
Their best everything.
And so what happens is people that are struggling or suffering, they're comparing their insides to everybody else's outsides, and they're looking at those, and it's making them feel worse.
Yeah.
And it's a much bigger topic, I know, to what your question was, but I think it's powerful. It's important that we find our own value, and that's easy to say and really difficult to do.
Wow. Okay. We're going to get to that because I think that is really where I want to go is how do you get to the value of you and loving you? But before, I want to have you take us on a journey of this health journey that you've been on. I want to go about 3 years before the first diagnosis. What were you feeling? Can you go into that 3-year window? What were you experiencing? What were you feeling? Was there anger? Was there rage? Was there suppression? Was there overdrive? Was there anything that you can remember right before that first diagnosis? Were you going through anything with divorce? I don't know what, actually, we've never asked this question. I don't even know what you were facing at that time.
It's funny, as you were saying all that, I'm going, yes, all of that.
You were experiencing all of it.
All of it. I had a lot of stress at work, raising a family. I was in a difficult time in a relationship at that point. I had in my growing up from that 5-year-old, and then as you came to Colorado, and that was the place that I was supposed to stay. And after many moves, and we had to move months later, I was crushed. I can say today I was clinically depressed after that for many years.
After the move out of Colorado?
After the move out of Colorado. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought everybody carried this really dark, painful thing in their chest all the time. I thought that was growing up. Oh, when you grow up,
that was your normal.
This is what you feel. And that then, over time, once I became a teenager, I started to rebel. And I was angry. I was rageful. And it was really just the pain of the 5-year-old that's coming through. And to answer that, yes, I was feeling all of that. And I wonder, and I'll tell you something my cousin said to me that could actually bring me to tears, but obviously he's known me all my life, and he and I are very close. And of all the different things I've done, from exploring myself and therapies and all the different things I've done and all the medical community I've been around, one of the most profound things I had ever heard came from him. And that was, he said to me before I started into that first journey, he said, "You don't think you just got cancer, right? I've watched your life. Your body can only take so much."
And that resonated.
It resonated because I think there is a responsibility within all of us to recognize when we're carrying things, recognize we can never understand what it's doing to our health, whether it's stress, whether it's trauma, whatever that might be. We don't know how it might evolve in our own bodies.
Exactly. The body holds the score. It's going to tell us everything. Sometimes right away, sometimes later. So thank you for that. I think it's important for people to hear that, not for shame or anything like that, but to just recognize, be honest with yourself. Where are you at? What are you chasing? And why are you chasing it? So take me through this first experience. What was the hardest moments for you? Can you describe what cancer it was and fill everyone in?
Yeah, sure. So they found a lump on my throat. There's no cancer in my family at all. So I never really thought about it. I was in my late 40s. And I have a very dear friend that's a doctor, and went to him, and he did a thorough exam and checked my lymph nodes and things like that, and said, "With your history, you're so healthy. I'm not worried about it, but we need to watch it. Let's put you on antibiotics." So we did that. And this piece of this is my own responsibility in that I was living my life as an entrepreneur, as a father and husband at the time, and so on. And he told me to come back within, I believe it was 6 weeks after taking the antibiotics. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't get back for 8 months. I just thought I must have a swollen lymph node.
Yeah.
And after it was still there 8 months later, he said, "We should probably just get this out. I'm not worried about it. We should get it out." And they took it out, and I just remember the doctor saying, "This doesn't look good." And so that was one of the moments. When you just hear "this doesn't look good,"
it hits different.
Powerful. And then that same doctor, there's so many things in this journey. I think there's some doctors out there that are meant to be caretakers. They're beautiful human beings. Some of them are scientists, and not one is greater or less than the other. But in human connection, they're different. And so I remember my phone ringing. I came home from work. I lived in a high-rise at the time, and I was pulling in the parking lot. And I saw the number. And I knew it was him. And I let it ring, and I finally picked it up. And he said, "Hey, Scott, this is," I forget the doctor's name, honestly. He said, "You've got cancer." And it was the next thing that he said that I've never forgotten. He said, "Don't go jumping off a bridge or anything." And it was at that moment that I didn't hear another word he said after that.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea where it was, what it was, or anything. And I wrote about this in that I don't remember, other than it felt like my body just literally slid out of the car, and don't remember much after that. So that moment is one that sticks with me, certainly through that. I needed a full neck dissection. They needed to do surgery and remove lymph nodes. Here I was stage 4. And so I had to be fitted for a mask that they literally snap you to the radiation table so that they can be as precise as they can with radiation and chemotherapy. So I had 36 rounds of radiation. I had a full neck dissection and lost my salivary glands on the right side. And I had chemo on top of it. There are so many moments in that, but I think some of the most profound ones that I've shared and written about as well are watching other people go through it as I was going through it. And I remember one of the nurses saying to me, "Know that in your journey, you're going to be able to recognize where somebody is in their own journey." And it was so true. So I remember being able to see, I saw a woman once with a Kleenex on her mouth, getting just about ready to get radiation. And I knew she was sick. She was trying not to throw up.
Oh,
And so you can recognize that in other people because you've gone through it.
yeah.
You see it.
What, on that first experience, were there angel moments when there's just like a moment you're like, we were talking about angel moments before the show, we pushed play, but was there an angel moment during that first time where someone came in or someone said something or something happened or where you felt a thing wash over you?
There was for me, and it wasn't a person, but it was a knowing. And because I'd been an entrepreneur and really unstoppable in my own mind at that point in life, because I was just living from my head. And you would have thought that I would have taken up the mantra of hating cancer, fighting cancer. And for whatever reason, when I heard I had it, that wasn't at all what I was going to do. There was no fight. It made no sense to me that I loved these cells yesterday. They were part of me. Why would I hate these cells today just because I heard I've got cancerous cells?
That's really fascinating because you're a driver. You're an entrepreneur that gets things done. You could have easily taken on that mantra. Like, you see them wearing their shirts like, fuck cancer, like all these, like, to pump them up, to buoy them up. And yours was, no, I'm going to love.
Yeah, I was going to love, but love passionately with the will that I have. It wasn't going to be a subtle love, but that was an angel moment, to your point, that I recognized that, oh, no, my journey is not going to be hate. My journey is not going to be angry at my body or angry at my cells. And I think the analogy that I've used over time is that it made no sense to me how I could heal if I was clenching a fist. That makes me feel tight. That makes me feel like I'm restricting things. And so I wanted to be open and allow those cells not only to know that they were loved, but I also did a lot of intentions, a lot of visualization of making them the healers. So before they left, they had a purpose. And their purpose was, and I told them, we have millions of healthy cells. It's okay. But we're going to be around you, but you're going to show us the way, how we're going to heal at the time that you have left.
Wow. So you were doing those visualizations. And how long were you in the hospital with this?
The surgery I was probably in when they did the next dissection, probably 10 days. And I don't remember specifically. That was 15 years ago. And then after that, coming back regularly for radiation treatments and chemotherapy, and a lot through that as well for anyone that's been through that or have watched a loved one go through that. And I remember going back to angel moments. There was one moment I thought that was it. I didn't know if my body could take it anymore. I'd been through so many rounds, and many times my blood count was not high enough to do radiation. My body was failing, and I had lost 60 pounds probably at that point. And I had an infection, And so I had a feeding tube and ports and things like that, and one of them got infected. And so my platelets had dropped to a point that I was going to bleed out if I fell or even scratched myself. I needed to get a platelets transfusion. And I remember I was in a hospital room. They asked me to come back to the hospital immediately, and I was shaking. I had a fever. I was in a hooded sweatshirt and shaking, just trying to keep my body warm as we do. And I thought, this may be it. This is it. And I really sat and wondered how I felt in that moment with whatever resources I had, because I was on fentanyl and oxycodone and all these things trying to help with the pain. And then suddenly I had a sense of peace. And the sense of peace came from one thing. And that was being the entrepreneur. Once I got diagnosed, I took my case and gave it to 3 different organizations. Didn't tell them that I was doing that, but I knew that I was the one that had to decide. No matter what the opinion was, I needed to decide what journey I was going to take. All 3 of them had a different opinion. And the moment then, as I was sitting there shaking, thinking this might be it, I may not live through the night, was that I had done everything I could do. And it was at that moment, the reason I felt peace was there were no what ifs left. And that has continued to stay with me the rest of my entire life, that if I've done everything I can do, truly, in my heart, not to cope, not to ignore, not to deflect, but if I've done everything from a place of truth in my heart that I could do, then I'm at peace. And so when there's no what ifs left, I found out that night, that's where I found my personal peace. And probably for the first time in my life. I mean, it was that moment that I realized.
That's a gift. Because I don't know if a lot of us could say that. And I guess you don't really get there unless you face off with the what if. Wow. It's really interesting. How did your life change after that first? Did things change? Did your work change? Did your relationships change?
Everything.
Everything changed. Okay,
Everything changed. So there's one story before I went in. I'll digress here just for a second because it's coming through, so I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
Since I didn't know if I was going to live before it started, I literally stopped myself and said, have you ever been aware enough to know what wind feels like in your face? If I'm meant to pass and someone didn't get to live, do they know what grass feels like under their feet? If I really paid attention. And so I literally went down the elevator, and it was winter. I took my shoes off and I'm walking in the middle of the grass thinking, I need to know what this feels like before I go. And I'm feeling the cold wind against my face saying, I need to know what this feels like. I've never paid attention.
Wow.
And so that was a real present moment awareness.
Yeah. Which probably shifted every moment after that. Like, am I being present? Because now it's like, this is what actually matters.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's how life changed too, right?
That's how life changed too. And that's how I went into it. Even before I went into surgery, the doctor had come out and I said, how's your energy? He said, no, it's good. And I said, no, that's not what I'm asking. Like, how's your energy? So he took his mask down. He's gotten to know me well over time. Then he grabbed both of my feet and he closed his eyes. And then he looked at me and said, no, Scott, it's really good. I said, okay, mine too. I'm ready. And that's how we went into surgery. I need to be honest with myself. And I learned over time, people would say that, you're courageous, you're going through cancer treatment. I never felt courageous. And I've learned a definition between strength and courage. For me, it's just strength is what we do when we have no choice. You just need to be strong in whatever you need to face. I had no choice. So I needed to use as much resources as I had. Courage is found in the decisions we make once we get our choices back.
That's good.
That's
I like
courage.
that.
And so
say that statement again.
Strength is what we use when we don't have a choice. Courage is what we show in the decisions we make when we get our choices back.
That's really good.
So I needed to live into that. And so I needed to live my truth regardless of what it meant. And in doing so, I got divorced. I sold my company. I literally let everything go. And I remember there was a moment that I needed to walk. And I was walking in that same area. I needed to feel grass and all of those things. And there was a wall on the other side of this 4-lane highway. And I thought, I'm going to get up on that wall. Here's this guy in his late 40s
I
getting
know,
up
I'm
on
like,
this
why that
wall.
wall?
And it was probably a foot wide. I don't remember. And it was maybe 6 feet up in the air. Somehow I forget how he got up there. And I started walking the wall. And I'm literally walking the wall with my arms out, like balancing on this. And as it continues to get lower and lower. And what my felt experience was that I was going back to my 5-year-old as I was walking this wall.
Oh,
And I got to the very end, and maybe it was a foot high. Now, in between it, cars are honking, and what is this guy doing? But I jumped off the end of that wall, and it was at that moment, like as a 5-year-old, I knew what I needed to do the rest of my life. My purpose was just to love and to play. That's all we get. To love and to play and to touch as many lives as we can with the time we have. And so after I had sold the business and divorced and so on, I let go and just said, life,
you're in control.
you show me. I am surrendering, but I'm going to live into my greatest good with the time that I have. And that's when life completely took off.
It took off in a good way?
Really good way.
Okay, tell us what, I think someone wants to hear. What was the good that started to come?
One, the hardest thing to do was let go of everything familiar.
Absolutely.
And I learned over time, for me, and I've shared this as well, that familiarity can be a false friend. We can trust familiarity when it's probably not trustworthy.
Yeah.
And that can be in a relationship. That can be in a place in life. That can be in a work environment. Because something's familiar doesn't mean it's right for us, but it feels safe.
Yeah.
But it's a false sense of safety. But really living for me over time has been getting up on a high wire. What do I have to lose? That's when we feel the most alive, is when we put the most at risk.
Yeah.
And so that really became a big part of the rest of my life then. And then from that, the hardest thing was being alone and not doing what I knew how to do so well. That was familiar to me, and I was pretty good at it, and get away from business as much as I could and so on. So being in that alone time, I started to write a lot and got a manuscript completed, and then ended up meeting my next business partner. And he and I went on a journey together of some really wonderful experiences we created a bespoke world-renowned motorcycle and toured the world with that. And we started a technology company and became just dear friends in the throes of all of that. So my life went in directions that I never would have anticipated, or I never would have had if I would have tried to create it myself. I needed to surrender, and life creates things so much bigger, more beautiful. What I have to do, though, is take the courageous action when I see that something is in front of me. Yeah. So it's nothing we wait for, but when we surrender to be shown, then it takes really courageous action to make it come to life.
What I love hearing that you're saying on a very fundamental level is that, yes, you dismantled and you were like, I'm going to be courageous, but you play, but you also built. You continued to live in joy in business. And you said you did it with a business partner that you had fun with and you had respect with. And so you were still in business creation. It just probably was a different energy behind it, different intention behind it. It sounds like you were playing more. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to now that you want to do that would be play for Scott?
It's interesting. I think, again, so many of my stories are based on some work I've done with a therapist. This will be another one and she had said to me that when you give yourself up to life, just put your helmet on, because your intentions are going to show up. And she always reminds me too that somewhere in your life you've asked for this, and where much is given, much is required.
Yep.
I don't know what that is. I am very organic in living today, very organic in that many times don't even know where we're going to dinner.
Okay.
And say, are we going left or are we going right? Where are we supposed to be? I don't know. Let life show us.
Yeah.
And most oftentimes it turns out to be something we never could have created. But it's just not having absolute plans. But yet when you see it, you know it. And so even in exploring where to live, how to live, all of those things, you're going to be leaving what's familiar.
Yeah.
But yet something else is being born.
Yeah.
And So it's not just losing something, you're gaining something maybe more beautiful. That there's a chapter in life for many of these different things. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is close the chapter.
That is true. Just close the chapter. Stop. So good. This is a vulnerable question. Do you ever live in fear of it coming back?
Every day.
You live in it.
Every day. Yeah.
And what does that feel like in your body?
So it was interesting. As I was getting ready to go into this the second time, which was really odd because it was 15 years later. I was 15 years out. And I was working, as I continue to do, again, on my own personal growth and
Yeah, life had
personal
changed so
peace
much
and
by
all
then.
of that. But I continue to do personal work, regardless of what therapies it might be. But it was very different the second time. I had lived for 15 years, and anyone that's had cancer will tell you. People will say, "Oh, are you in remission?" I don't know. I don't know what remission means.
Yeah.
I don't like to be called a survivor. That's a word that I really don't like because I think about all the people. My body was fortunate enough to get through it for whatever reason. And there were many people that didn't get that chance.
And there's still survivors in
There's-
your mind.
it-
Yeah. Or why is it because it's hitting on this idea that I somehow did something different they didn't?
I did something heroic
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Yeah. I can see that. I can feel that.
And so that I remember too, for anyone that's had family members or gone through it themselves, after radiation, they have a bell that you ring. This is your moment that you've finished. And I didn't want to ring it. And the reason I didn't want to ring it, and this is the stuff that brings tears behind my eyes, is there were a lot of people that would have loved to have rang that bell. And they didn't get to.
Yeah.
I think this is very real for anyone or any family that has had this. It's almost unspoken. And we don't want to remind ourselves of it. But for anyone that's gone through it, through those 15 years, it wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about it. Or it's just always there. I've chosen over those 15 years because of my salivary glands and the things that I don't have anymore. They're also a great reminder of me of how lucky I am. Yeah, I'm really fortunate. And so the things that I've lost through some of the surgeries are also great reminders to me. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm really fortunate. Yeah, I don't know that
This will
that'll
ever
ever
leave you.
change.
Yeah.
No,
It's not going to leave you.
no. But going into the second one, you mentioned the word fear. My fear of the second was really big. And I remember I was writing a book to my grandkids trying to finish that because I didn't know if I would survive it, trying to get all of my affairs in order. And the second one was actually a much more radical. They had to reconstruct my throat. And ironically, it was in the same area and more severe, actually, with regard to what I needed to go through. And I remember as I was leaving the house, because I drive up to the Midwest, I remember tapping the house and saying, "Thank you. Thank you for taking such good care of me. My intention is to be back." But I wanted to thank you before I left. So there was all those tight moments of fear.
Yep.
And I was reminded by my Gestalt therapist that in that time, I allowed that fear to be as big as it was. Whatever it was, whether I was literally in tears or whatever, it wasn't just about being strong. It was letting that fear be real, because then I could be with it. I could let it be fully in this so that we were fully in it, whether it was fear or strength or whatever we needed to use.
Well, thank you for this. I think it's really walking what I can walk through your words of what this was like. It's eye-opening, to be honest, because I don't know if I've tapped my house and thought I might not be back, or write a letter to my kids or my grandkids. It's a tough one from someone sitting in my seat to be like, "Wow, it was a gift that you got it," because I don't know if I've really faced off with those parts of myself. So it's hard to even say a gift because I haven't walked those shoes, but it just feels like a gift. I'm like, wow, you really did face off with things that none of us really have faced off with. And it's important to face off with. Even if we're not, that is the courageous thing to face off with. Am I living in accordance? Am I saying thank you? Am I walking on the grass? Am I getting my affairs in order?
Mm-hmm.
That is courageous to do all those, regardless if you're in the face of maybe not living. So it's taking me on a journey. So thank you for that. And I imagine it is for a lot of people listening, and some people listening have faced off with a lot of things that you're expressing, and it's bringing up a different emotion. In closing, I would really love to, I want to ask you two questions. How do you choose to love today? Because I know you love differently today than you ever did 15, 20 years ago. So how do you choose to love today? And then I'll ask you my second question.
I'm sitting because I'm letting it come fully forward. I love with every ounce of my being today, and it comes in really different forms. But I'm very intentional with affection and gratitude and connection and depth. And I think there's also an acceptance. And it's one of my meditations every morning. And I'm happy to share my meditation with you if you'd like to hear that as well. It's very simple.
Yeah.
But my morning is that I envision really bright white light, and I just say, show me the way to touch as many lives as I can with the time that I get. And then the second part is that I surrender, and I'm surrendering to be love. And I have this little Post-it note that I wrote years ago, and it's curled and dirty and everything else. And it sits in the drawer in my bathroom. So every morning when I open it, and all it says is be love as that reminder. And there are some days I'm better at it than others. I'm human, and as we all are. But the third thing that I say in the intention is just thank you. Thank you. We are so fortunate. And at least I didn't, I'll speak for myself. I didn't take enough time to just be grateful for the life, the people in it, and the moments that I get in life. So that all ties back to the greatest thing we get. I want to leave this earth with the greatest felt sense of love that I came into it with.
Thank you for that. One final question. I ask everyone this. Wow, this one's going to hit me emotionally. It's your last day on this earth, and you're facing millions of people that are hearing your final word on earth this time. What would you share?
It's interesting the way you frame that, because I've lived that
I know.
hundreds and hundreds of times.
I know.
And so my final words are really what I try to remind myself of, and that is just be love. And also, love is so multidimensional. It can help us heal. It can give us strength. It's so much more than a word. And I think it is so many times seen as a very light and flowery word. And I think there's a depth and a healing power to it, and a strength that takes us to places we never would have imagined.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for this candid conversation. Thank you for being here on this show. And for all of you listening, wherever you're at on your journey, I just want to speak to you because I have a feeling it rang a little rawer for some than others. And just letting you know that we love you, and wherever you're at on the journey, we're cheering you on. So sending you all my love, and until next time, we'll see you on the Danette May Show.